get your pens and pencils out because we are going to be taking some notes today on some new goals and expectations for our Calgary Flames.
You're Locked On Flames, your daily podcast on the Calgary Flames. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's episode of Locked On Flames. As always, I am your host, Jessica Belmosto, and thank you so much for joining me. Today, we're going to be talking about the battle for the backup spot, this influx of new young players on the verge of breaking into the NHL, as well as some of our favorite forwards. Make sure you subscribe to Locked On Flames wherever you get your podcasts, as well as YouTube. We are officially back to daily shows now, so make sure you're subscribed, and we're here for you Monday through Friday, 5 days a week. Your Calgary Flames every day. Let's talk about it. Matt Coronato. I still can't believe that he signed a long-term deal with the Flames, and not because I didn't want him to, but because we know how it goes with American-born players. They tend to want to go back home. And, I mean, ultimately, that's their right. So if he I think a 7-year deal is fantastic. And I think that this deal has a lot of potential to age like fine wine. I think that if this was next summer, he would probably be likely looking at closer to $7.58 million even, just based on projections and where the experts see the cap. He had 24 goals in 77 games this year. I truly believe that he could hit 30 this season. I think that the confidence from last season is going to give him the boost that he needs to go into camp. Obviously have a strong camp, and just, I don't know if he's going to come like flying right out of the gate, but there's real potential here for Matt Coronato to turn into a 30-goal scorer. I kind of expect that. If it's not this year, I would say next year or the year after, simply because of where he's at in his development. He has a great shot. He is getting better at moving through the zone. He's definitely gotten better at skating. I love it. And I would like to see him at least in the low 30s for goals. Speaking of meeting expectations and needing to hit his goals, that would be Jonathan Huberdeau. He has to hit at least the mid-60s for points. I've said, 75, that's like a good threshold. That's, that feels fair in terms of where things are at now, but 65 is just kind of like, that sounds so depressing when you think of the player he used to be. I think that an increase in offense and goals from Matt Coronato obviously increases the likelihood of Huberdeau having more points, and I just really want to see more. I know it might be dumb looking for that, but there were flashes of vintage Jonathan Huberdeau last season that I was so excited, and it's great. He had 28 goals. I think if he hit 30 goals, the city might have erupted. I'm just very cautiously optimistic here. I also think that Kadri should probably be around to the high 20s, low 30s for goals, just because his age, but also he has consistently gotten better and is aging like the finest of wine. And we need to talk about Joel Farabee and Morgan Frost. They need to get their footing under them quickly and as fast as possible and show up. They had last season as a trial period. It did not go well. In fact, it went the opposite of well, I would say. It went horrifically. And now is the time for them to prove to the organization and the fans, truthfully, why they were brought to this young group and why they should be in the lineup over someone else. Aydar Suniev. I will die on this hill. But I think that Morgan Frost needs to be in the mid to high teens for goals. I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, he needs to be at 25 goals. That's not who Morgan Frost is, unless the Flames magically, acquire a ridiculous winger. It's just not in the cards for Frost. And I want to see Farabee get as close to 20 as he can get. Obviously, I'd like to see more, but he's typically in that high teens realm. But I know that he has the capabilities of getting back to 20, being a 20 goal scorer. And I said that. That was one of my, I believe it was an early off-season projection or prediction. There has to be a solution to the Flames' low goal scoring, right? Having a bunch of players that can't consistently hit certain goals or certain point totals isn't going to solve that. It's probably just going to make things worse. And the place that you're stuck in of being consistently inconsistent, like you're just turning the wheels and you're not getting any traction. So it feels like with the forward scoring situation. I hope I'm wrong. I would love to see more goal scoring this season across the board, obviously. But I would say that these guys are the ones that I have on my radar in terms of higher expectations. Obviously, we're going to talk about Connor Zary tomorrow, but I want to see Coronato go out there and have at least a 25-30 goal season. I want to see Jonathan Huberdeau putting up the numbers that he put up last season, if not more. Kadri, I'm fine with how he performed last season. He exceeded my expectations. So I will take that. And if he regresses a little bit, oh no, he's playing hockey, still pretty high-end hockey at 36 years old. Ooh, the horrors. I want to see Morgan Frost and Joel Farabee just get it together. I want them to succeed. Otherwise, we're going to have another problem on our hands. But coming up next, we're going to talk about some of the young kids in the lineup because I think that there are a lot of things to be hopeful for when it comes to players like Aydar Suniev and Zayne Parekh. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel is making sure that you are ready for kickoff with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you will get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. I love using the FanDuel app because it is super easy to use, super easy to navigate, and it makes watching the games a little more exciting. So, are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet. Thanks, everyone, for hanging out with me today on Locked On Flames. Make sure you're following me on Twitter at @JustBelmosto. When I look at the final game of last season, I think happiness, excitement, because all of the young kids, whether it was their first NHL game or the first couple, they scored their goals. They scored their first goal. It was exciting. It gave me a little bit of hope. And that's the one thing the Flames will do constantly. They just give you hope, and then they take it away, and then they give it back. It's really a fun time being a Flames fan. But I think everyone's biggest priority now that the Connor Zary contract is signed is, of course, Zayne Parekh. To me, they were 1A and 1B in terms of like my priorities and focus this offseason. And I think that there is a very good chance that Parekh starts in a sheltered role in the NHL. And that's fine. We know that this team and organization aren't comfortable just kind of throwing players to where they should be. I think the one game he played last season is it's hard to tell because it was the final game of the season. So did they just want to throw him out there for 20 minutes a night, or is he going to be playing on the third pairing with a guy like Braden Pahal? At least just to start the year, not a permanent thing, but just to dip his toes in. And the first 9 games of this season are brutal. Like this first stretch, I think is going to set the tone for the rest of the season. The way that the 5-game win streak last year kicked off the season. I think that there's a lot more confidence there from the player, as well as confidence in the player from the organization. I think this year they definitely are leaning more towards like putting more thought behind him joining them in the NHL versus, okay, go back to the O, which I understand why they did last year. I completely understand. And I'm glad they did because he had an incredible record-breaking season. But this year, it feels like if you send him back, it is nothing but a disservice to Parekh. If you want him to be an NHL player, guess where you need him to play? Believe it or not, in the NHL. If he does not come out of the gate with, 10 goals in 15 games and all these crazy defensive moves, it's fine. It is an adjustment period, regardless of when it happens. This is a fun transition period for the player. And I think we will see success. Could it be immediately? Yeah, of course. Could it not be immediate? Also, yes. But one of the players that I think that won't make the roster out of camp, but will likely be one of the first forward call-ups outside of Dryden Hunt, of course, is Aydar Suniev. Excuse me. I really do think that he gets the call. It makes a lot of sense. He had a great college career. He's done very well for himself, and in his NHL debut last season, scored a goal, you guys. I mean, hey, I don't care that it was game 82 and no one was playing their starters, but guess what? He still did it. I probably couldn't do it. I know I couldn't do it, but the Flames have to figure out a way to integrate him into this lineup. I think that he is a true contender for like my dark horse of prospects because there's a lot of promise there when it comes to needing more offense, right? And we know the Flames desperately need to score more goals, and he's right there is a very tangible solution to the Flames scoring problems, but it's a matter of them doing what I would consider as a difficult job and moving players. I think that there is interest in obviously moving and clearing space, but Craig Conroy has to make the decision of who stays and who goes. Do you do something drastic? This sounds so drastic and over dramatic, but like, do you trade Michael Backlund? I'm not saying they should. I'm not saying that they will, but there's a lot of young centers coming up. And, well, you know what position Michael Backlund plays? I'm just saying, what about looking into a Nazem Kadri trade? I know that that's been kind of a hot button topic. I feel like these last 2 off seasons, especially, and last season he came right into camp and was like, I want to be here. But it feels like this off season they're kind of poking the bear a little bit and stoking the fire to maybe bring him to Montreal. I thought that it could potentially be a situation where the Flames trade for the Carey Price contract along with a player and a first. But whatever they did in San Jose, I don't understand. But sure, whatever. Conroy has to make some decisions, hard decisions, and start moving people. I get it. These are your guys. You've built a bond and a relationship with them, but it's a business. Decisions have to be made, whether they are easy or difficult. And I feel like this may be a make or break season for Craig Conroy as well, in terms of getting the Rasmus Andersson deal done, the Dustin Wolf extension, clearing space for the forwards, because I feel like everyone's still under contract for the next eternity. I'm hopeful that there will be some shifts. There will be, maybe we'll get lucky and Sharon Govich will end up at a contender by the deadline. Or Blake Coleman, because I can see it. But coming up next, we are going to talk about the battle for the backup goaltending position, as Dustin Wolf has claimed the net is his. Thanks everyone for hanging out with me today on Locked On Flames. Make sure you are subscribed wherever you get your podcasts, as well as YouTube. We are here for you Monday through Friday, 5 days a week, your Calgary Flames every day. And, well, we know who the starter is. It's Dustin Wolf. Dustin Wolf is actually doing the media tour right now. They had him in like a video game chair doing things. I always love like the behind the scenes clips, or like where they try to guess the person based on like their hairline, or a few seasons ago when they had Mangiapane draw the Flames logo. Like that was fun. That's fun. And I'm hopeful we'll get some good content this year. I know that they've sent Mackenzie Weegar in the past too, and he's an entertaining one. So I get it. I get why both of them are kind of the face of the Flames in terms of that. But what I don't have an answer for is the backup goaltending situation, because we know Dustin Wolf is going to take over that crease. It is his for as long as he wants it. Truthfully, I'd give him whatever he wants this offseason for his contract, and that's probably why I'd be a bad general manager, or a great one. But it's clear as day that Dustin Wolf is your starter. I think that training camp is going to be so hard for Devin, Cooley, and Ivan Prosvetov. I think it's going to be difficult. And I know it's so weird that there's like an actual competition for that spot now, because it's obviously been occupied by Vladar for however many seasons now. And it's like, oh, it's actually up for the taking. And then you kind of have to deal with the idea of knowing, like, you're backing up Dustin Wolf. If you want a position, if you want a starting goalie position, this is not the organization for you. Both Cooley and Prosvetov are on final years of their contract. Well, Cooley, 1 year left, and Prosvetov signed a 1 year deal. So, I mean, I think that it's realistic that it could be either of them. The thing with both of them is that I believe that both of them have to clear waivers, which is tough, especially depending on the goaltending situation and any injuries that are popping up along the way. I don't think that they would necessarily claim one of them, but I mean, I don't know. Some of these general managers are more proactive than reactive. And sometimes an injury hits right before the perfect waiver claim. So, what does it take for either of them to win that job? I understand that the defensive group in front of them is what it is. We've talked about it before. Traffic cones, pylons, crash test dummies. One of the things that I think is so commendable about Dustin Wolf, especially at his young age, is how well regulated his emotions are and how he keeps his composure. Because I get it. There were plenty of goals that if I let those in, I would say, wow, I'm Dustin Wolf. This goal probably just tarnished my reputation. Who do I think I am? But in all seriousness, I think that there has to be, obviously, like that level of compete has to be there along with consistency. And you need to be able to show up because it's a long season. And Dustin Wolf does not have an easy job, but he's also going to be likely be getting the bulk of the starts. I want to see that more than I necessarily have strong feelings for who's going to get the net. I think that right now it's just realistic to say it's anybody's net. And that role is an open one. Obviously, it's a good one. I would love to be on a goaltending tandem with Dustin Wolf. He seems like a really fun guy, and he is someone that you can learn from. It doesn't matter that if he's younger than you. I think that he's a player that just possesses so much skill that I don't know. I would imagine maybe even some veteran goaltenders are like watching his film because the way there's just a lot to learn from with him. And I think it'd be cool to see kind of someone, I don't want to say follow in his footsteps and like live in his shadow, but be okay with taking that back seat. Because realistically, that's not your crease unless something happens. Which, knock on wood, because that would be absolutely horrible. But we don't know. I don't know. I think we're going to start seeing things kind of fall into place and shift a bit more as the month goes on, obviously. But now that the Connor Zary extension's done, can they just trade Rasmus Anderson? Like, I'm not even trying to be funny, but we need to get this done. So maybe, who cares about the backup goaltending? Let's trade Rasmus Anderson. Let's figure that out before we even touch the rest of our to-do pile. But that'll do it for me here on today's episode of Locked On Flames. Thank you all so much for joining me. I hope you have a fantastic rest of your Monday, and we are back to daily shows. So fall is here. Hockey is here. I hope you're having a great time, and I will see you all later. Bye-bye.